Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Miss Aditi Handa, the co-founder of the Baker's Dozen, which is a artisan bakery brand. Hi Aditi, welcome to ELI.
Hi, Priya. Thank you for having me here.
I would request you to introduce yourself to our audience.
So, hello everyone. I'm Aditi. I run a company called the Baker's Dozen. This is a venture that is being run between me and my husband. We started this in the year 2012 in Bombay.
Mhm,
The idea was really very simple that India में अच्छी bread नहीं मिलती, and all we wanted to do was make good, honest bread.
mhm,
Um, None of us actually come from a culinary background, so one of us needed to get trained in the art, and which is when I went to New York in 2012 to learn how to make bread.
okay.
And I think it was during my time over there when I met amazing chefs, and they made me fall in love with bread. And I came back a very transformed person. Uh, the intention was not to run a business anymore. Post that, the intention was to make really good, honest bread out there and give it to everyone.
Mhm,
And if a business happens, great. If it doesn't happen, that was fine too.
mhm,
But that's good for us. Things went on well,
o-
and we started our journey in Bombay. But today, in 2022, now we are present across almost 17 cities across India,
okay.
and we've also added more to our product range from bread. We make really good cookies. We make snacks like lavash and ragi crackers, and we have an array of pastries. These are all sponge cakes, tea cakes. They're consumed on a daily basis,
Okay.
and we have a range of that which is also made out of whole wheat.
Mhm,
So Baker's Dozen initially was a product development company, and we developed some really good sourdough breads.
mhm,
And then in 2019, we innovated that with a German technology of packaging, which helped us naturally increase our shelf life because we
okay.
don't use any preservatives for our in our products.
Mhm,
And today, our aim really is to get a sourdough in every home in India. That's what we are. That's what our mission is.
okay. Before we start talking about the venture, can you tell us what made you to, choose this industry, or may I ask why you are into bakery?
So I think what I always knew was that I was going to be an entrepreneur.
Mm,
And it just happened to be at a time when me, my husband, and my younger brother got together and said, let's leave our respective jobs and let's start a business.
mhm,
We really had no idea what business. The idea was let's just do a business, but we were not very sure which one. And we started brainstorming. We met people from lots of different industries. We met people from the pharma industry. We met people from the old age home industry. We met people from e-commerce, food industry. You name an industry, and we probably met someone over there.
mhm,
And we would always ask them to share their journey with us. And at the end of that, we would ask them that if we had to start a business in their sector,
mm,
what do they see a gap in the market to be?
okay.
So that we met about 60, 70 odd people. And in one of these discussions, in a very by the way line, someone said कि यार India में अच्छी bread नहीं मिलती. And that is something we picked up on.
Uh-huh.
And we said, this is quite true. And we said, when we talk about bakery, we always think of cakes. We don't even think
Mm,
of bread. And bread is the heavy bread that you get, which is called brown bread, but it's really not made with whole wheat. It's all just color and stuff like that. So
mm,
we said, why don't we pick this as a topic? Very frankly, there was not much of market research or any of those things we did. It was just a pure passion thing that achi bread nahi milti. Let us learn how to make bread. And that is how we started.
okay. And after you learned about baking and all, how did you start the venture? Tell us about the initial days of building Baker's Dozen.
So I always believe that whenever you are starting any venture, keep it small. Don't get too, like I said, we didn't really do a lot of market analysis. It was just a feeling that we had. Go by your gut, and that because your gut can give you so many answers which your research doesn't give.
Mm,
So we started in a very simple way. We took a small kitchen in near Dadar in Bombay, and
mm,
we said we will make bread here. And we tried identifying a small 200 square feet shop in Worli and said we will sell bread from there. But
okay.
life, this is what we had planned, but that's not how it worked out, because what happened is the shop where we wanted to retail our bread, there was some dispute and we were unable to actually sign a contract for it.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a kitchen, we'd ordered our equipment, we'd started making bread, but there was no way to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in a way our first challenge. And we said, okay, since it's small, you adapt very quickly. So we identified complexes near our kitchen. We have these huge 450, 500, 550 apartment complexes in Bombay.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, okay, this is definitely our target group. And we would go literally door to door. And when I say we would go, I say I would go,
Mm-hmm.
not a sales boy. So I would go door to door with a carry bag and saying, this is bread for you. I've just started a bakery, and we would give them free sampling. And
Mm-hmm.
we would say, if you like it, there's a number on the pack, you can order more from it. It was really as simple as that. And
Mm-hmm.
we got in a lot of customers like that. For the shop that we wanted, we finally did find a way to get a contract signed and that and get that up and running. But we didn't wait for that to start our business. So whenever a bottleneck comes, a good entrepreneur always thinks, how do I start getting my revenue in? How do I start getting my customers? I
Mm.
had probably planned A, but just pivot and go to plan B and get the ball rolling.
Uh, Also, can you tell us what is the exact problem statement you are solving through your venture?
Uh, like I said, our problem statement was really simple. Achieve bread and all you wanted to do was make a good, honest bread.
Okay.
Now we've extended it a little bit where we initially all we wanted to do was make good bread.
Mm-hmm.
And we were really limiting ourselves to a customer base in Bombay. But what we realized is a lot of people would come and come to our shops and say that, listen, I don't actually live in Bombay. I'm here visiting a friend. I'm here visiting my daughter. I live in either Delhi or Hyderabad. And can you find a way to sell the same bread over there too?
Mm-hmm.
So initially, the problem statement we were solving was, let's make good bread. Let's make good, authentic, honest sourdough.
Mm-hmm.
Now the problem statement that we're trying to solve is, how do we get this sourdough in every home in India? And which is a huge logistic and supply chain affair. But now that's the problem statement we're trying to solve, because there's clearly a demand for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Uh, Tell us about the challenges that you have faced while building and growing this venture, especially what challenges you faced while scaling up.
So surprisingly, the first challenge that we faced was, I came back from New York thinking that, okay, I know how to make good bread and I have the best recipes in the world. And when we actually started doing our trials in Bombay, it was a big flop show. It was very, very disheartening that you made a product with so much love, and when it came out of the oven, it was a total flop show. It's the first challenge that, listen, there was really no one out there to teach you. There was no chef I had who was going to fix the mistakes I was making. And there's a lot of science we had to put in it. We had to, we literally took it as an experiment. We would change only one variable at a time. So
Mm.
my recipe, at times I would only change the water, at times I would only change the proving time. And I think it took us a month before we could crack the formula, because what I had not anticipated is all my recipe development happened in New York, and I
Mm.
was making this actually in Bombay. So the flour is
Correct.
different, the water is different, the temperature is different, everything's different.
Mm.
So I think that was one of the first challenges I faced, which was, it seems quite small today, but I think it seemed like a really big, a very, very, very big milestone at that point when we could conquer it, saying that, listen, we faced a challenge and we could actually in-house address it.
Okay.
The challenges today that we face are not as product driven as supply chain driven, because demand forecasting for a perishable product, all our products are extremely low shelf life, 4 days, 5 days, 7 days. And to do a demand forecasting for that without having a huge wastage is what our new challenge is. And I think it will be a few months before we can crack that formula.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When you thought of scaling up, how did you scale up? How did you shortlist the cities in which you want to open an outlet, and how did you solve the supply chain problem?
So, like I said earlier, we started this in Bombay. So at that point, we used to just pack bread in butter paper and give it, and it had a 2 day shelf life, and we could not really go beyond Bombay at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then we said, okay, we want to experiment with a different city. So we said, okay, let's go to Pune, because our manufacturing, by then we had to move to Navi Mumbai. So Navi Mumbai is closer to the Pune side. So we said, okay, let's experiment with Pune and see what that works out like, which actually worked out quite well for us. And then we said, okay, now we said, let's go to Bangalore. I don't know why we selected Bangalore. I mean, we had a demand from Delhi, from Bangalore. For some reason, Bangalore is a place we thought we would connect well with. But
Mm,
there was we didn't have enough shelf life to be able to send a truck to Bangalore. So we used to actually air freight our bread. So it used to go
mm,
in air cargo.
okay.
Obviously, that didn't make any sense. I mean, customers liked it, but it made no business sense to do that.
Mm,
And then we started making huge losses. And till date, we are a self-funded company. So
okay.
making a loss was really not a viable option for us. So then we had to put an end to Bangalore and say, okay, we cannot supply to Bangalore.
Mm,
And then the really big supply chain thing came that if I have to be able to go beyond one city in India, and clearly there is a demand out there,
mm,
how do I do that? And we had really two options. Either we put up a kitchen in every city, or we and we didn't want to do that because it's a handmade product. None of this is machine made. Everything is handmade. To
mm,
get consistency in a handmade product pan India with several manufacturing units, we think is almost impossible.
mm,
So we said, okay, then how do we do it? And that's when we started researching on how does the rest of the world do it? Because we could not have been the first ones in the universe to face this problem, right?
mm,
And that's when we came across the packaging technology that I'm talking to you about, which is basically a modified atmosphere packaging technology.
mhm,
What it does is it removes all the oxygen in the pack. If there's no oxygen in the pack,
mm,
the growth of bacteria development is extremely slow. And now that gives us a natural shelf life of about 7 days for breads and about 30 days for our cakes.
okay.
Coming up with that is what I think tremendously helped us address the supply chain issue of being able to go to more cities than just one with
Mhm,
one single manufacturing unit.
okay. Okay. Uh, what is the vision forward now that you have achieved such a scale? Where do you want to reach in next 5 years or 10 years time?
So, so pre-pandemic, we didn't have a very large vision. Pre-pandemic, we said, okay, we'll just be one of those brands that is only in the metro cities.
Mhm,
And in the past 2 years, our biggest learning has been that the kind of products we have, because we have a variety of about 60 products ranging from 50 rupees to let's say about 250 rupees.
mhm,
And in that price range and product range, our target market is not just metro cities anymore. We now are in tier one cities, we are in some of the tier two cities, which makes us think that there is a demand much wider and much deeper than what we thought.
mhm,
And really, our vision is in the next 5 years, is there a way we can have a direct D2C connect with the consumers in these cities across India? So whether it's a Bombay or a Bangalore, whether it's a Hyderabad, whether it's Ahmedabad or a Baroda or Jaipur, we want to be able
mm.
to tap into all these markets with a very simple name: get a sourdough in every home. We want everybody eating only sourdough bread because it's the tastiest, healthiest bread to eat.
Okay. Can you tell us what is the current scale of operation in terms of how many loaves of bread do you produce per on a day-to-day basis?
So we produce close to about 40,000 units a day. These 40,000 units are spread across bread, cakes, cookies, and crackers.
Mhm,
And we are currently present across 17 cities with a D2C approach, where we have a direct outlet for customers to either walk in or we deliver to them
mhm,
across these cities.
okay. And any pivots that you have done to your business model so far?
Renti. So, it sounds very nice that today we sell 40,000 units, but in 2013, when we started the sales part of our business, we
Mm,
used to sell 25 units a day. And on a good day, it used to go to 45. And we were like, yay, 45 breads sold today.
okay.
But I think the first pivot that we made was when so we did only breads for about 2 or 3 years. And then we went into cakes in the year 2016.
Mhm,
So that was the first pivot we made. And we said we will not make these typical icing ganache cakes. We want to make sponge cakes, which are room temperature cakes. You can consume them better. You can just put two slices of it in your tiffin and have it on your go whenever you want. So I
mhm,
think that was the first pivot that we did. The second pivot, I think, was definitely our packaging technology. Once we had that, we could go to too many more cities. So that was the second. Third is, and this happened during the pandemic. So during the first lockdown, we had three of our own stores in Bombay through
Okay.
which we used to retail.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had another 250 touch points, which were either e-commerce or modern trade or general trade.
Mm-hmm.
And in the pandemic period, a lot of customers would directly come to us because our stores were open and available, and they were the only stores we had direct control over. We didn't really have control over e-commerce or modern trade, because if there was a COVID case, those shops would be shut. They had their own manpower limitations and so on.
Mm-hmm.
We said, okay, now what we want to do is to become a D2C brand. So let's say in June 2020, we had three of our own stores pan India. Today, in January 2022, we have about 48 of our own stores.
Mm-hmm.
So we're expanding significantly through our D2C approach. And a lot of this is online stores. So you can just go on our website, find your, put in your PIN code, and we will deliver the product to you.
Mm. Okay. From 25 breads a day to 40,000 units a day, it's a significant scale up you have done. While scaling up as a D2C brand, we often discover growth hacks that will work really for us. So, can you tell us about some growth hacks that you have been successful at?
So, two things. The biggest reason we've been able to do this is our packaging technology. There's no doubt in that.
Hmm.
So I've already spoken about that, so I'm not going to
Sure.
dwell further into that. The second is when we moved our manufacturing from Bombay to Ahmedabad, and no, it's not even in Ahmedabad. It's really an hour away from Ahmedabad, in the middle of a village, in the middle of nowhere, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized for us to find talent over there was, it was impossible. There was no talent out there. There was no trained bakers out there. And anyone who was a trained baker, let's say in Ahmedabad, would not want to travel so much.
Mm.
So the second growth hack we came up with is, let us identify the non-skilled staff which we will get locally.
Okay.
And this was a huge chunk of this employee part was skewed towards women. We really always wanted to push women employment a bit more than male employment. So we hired a huge chunk of women, and we've spent a lot of time training them in whatever skill that we thought they were best suited for. Some
Mm.
of them are in production where they bake bread or they make a cake. Some of them are in packaging. Some of them are in the hygiene department. So we do a lot of in-house skill training. And I would very proudly say that today the kind of bakers we have at the Bakers Dozen are probably one of the best in the country. I'm extremely proud of them. If you ask them their educational background or their technical training background, it's probably zero.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the fact that we are able to hire unskilled people and train them onto a skill and make them more employable, not just for us, but for the industry out there, is a significant growth hack we've been able to do. Also, I think that's a really good way to contribute back to not just your employees, but to your nation.
As an entrepreneur, you are expected to stay energetic and consistent over time. And when you are not in your game, I think the business suffers. So, can you tell us how do you manage to stay consistent and energetic throughout the journey? And how do you deal with situations where you lose focus or you may feel tired or restless?
So, first of all, I want to break a big myth. People don't stay energetic and motivated and focused all the time. It is totally okay for you to collapse once in a while. It's really no big deal. It's very natural. Everybody's going through it. Maybe they're not talking about it, but it is definitely something people should talk about, especially for young entrepreneurs. Because I remember when we started and when we faced our first big problem, our first bottleneck, or for our first bout of demotivation, that have we really made a really big blunder of our lives,
Mhm.
it helped to know that other people were failing too. There's a lot of solace one gets into that.
Okay.
Um, the fact that this is a two member founder team helps a lot, because if I am low and down, my co-founder isn't. So we always try to help each other out, that both of us cannot be drowning at the same time. Let's
Mm.
pick and choose that today is your day, or today is like this year is your year, next year will be my year. Um, at times, what I feel, and this happened during the first lockdown,
Okay.
where I remember the day the lockdown was announced, and we were like, okay, should we shut the plant or should we not? And we were very confused. Even if we wanted to keep it operational, how would we do it?
Hmm.
I always feel whenever you have a big challenge, don't look at the entire big challenge in entirety. Break it down. Always break it down into a series of small problems. This is probably one of the easiest or most commonly used problem solving hacks, and I think it works extremely well. So break down the big problem into stages.
Hmm.
Then what do I really need to tackle today? And I remember right before the lockdown, we were a 80-member team at the manufacturing, and I felt comfortable enough only to call 20 of them back. So we set
Hmm.
realistic expectations. We said, okay, let's only call 20.
Hmm.
Whatever we can manufacturing in 20, we will do.
Okay.
And as they came back, our confidence levels increased. And I think within a week, we were back to 80. And within a month, we actually started hiring more people.
Hmm.
So whenever you feel tired or demotivated, give yourself some space and time, unwind a little bit, come back. But second thing I always tell people, don't give up. That can't happen. You can take a break, you can take a few hours off, you can take a day off, you can take a weekend off, but you can't give up. You always have to figure out how are you going to solve your own problem. Really, no one's going to be able to help you.
Hmm.
And reality, other than you, nobody else even has the answer, even if they tried.
Okay. Also, can you tell us how do you manage your time? In other words, how does your calendar look like for a typical day?
So, initially, so I think every entrepreneur does this. Every entrepreneur in the start of their journey, they do everything themselves. And
Hmm.
a time comes when the entrepreneur becomes the biggest bottleneck to the business expanding. This is an extremely common phenomenon most people face.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be very aware of this phenomenon and start developing a team. And the earlier you develop a team, the better it is. And a lot of people say that once I have enough business, then I will develop a team. That's not how it works. You have to start developing a team and then you get more business. So don't do it the other way around. It will never work out. One of the reasons I can do a lot of different tasks today is because I have a team for everything, and a team who have been with me for almost 9, 10 years, where they understand what is it that I need, what is it that they need. So they present information to me in a way that makes sense to me, so I can take faster decisions.
Hmm.
Second thing that I do is, because I'm also a working mom, I have twin boys who are almost 5 years old. And obviously now they're at a far more stable stage, but the first 2 years and the year of my pregnancy was extremely difficult. So I tend to slot my days. So these are so let's say 2 days a week is when I will go to the plant. 2 days of the week is when I will look at marketing. Another 2 days of the week is when I will look at, let's say, purchase and supply chain. So I tend to slot my days.
Mm-hmm.
That this is my production day, this is my office day, and this is the day or the time I'm going to be with my child. And once you set these hard boundaries to your routine, you will be amazed by the amount of work you can get done with those boundaries. So always set a boundary for yourself and say, I will not cross this. And you will definitely find a way to get more done in limited time. A lot of people think, काम बढ़ गया, time नहीं बढ़ा. But that doesn't matter. You will learn to work smarter.
Can you tell us about some of the failures that you have gone through as an entrepreneur?
So I think there are a series. I could write a book with 100 failures that we've had at Baker's Dozen. But I think the one that probably demotivated us the most was between the year, let's say, 2016 to 2019, where for almost 3 years there was a stagnancy in our growth.
Mm-hmm.
We were barely growing. At times we were degrowing.
Okay.
And if any growth that came at huge losses, which we could not afford.
Hmm.
And I think that, so we were trying different we were trying to do a D2C thing, we were trying to go through e-commerce. हम हाथ पे मारते रहते थे, but for some reason those 3 years nothing was really working out.
Hmm.
And I don't know what happened, but suddenly in the month of January, February 2020, right before the lockdown, things started changing for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I always feel every entrepreneur will go through a period like this. For some, it was 6 months, for some, it is a year, some, it is 3 years, some, it is longer. You have to learn to stand by your product, your employees, your company, your brand, and just say, listen, this is just a phase, it will go away. You keep trying. You keep innovating, you keep trying different things, and it will eventually pay off. So I think that was the biggest part of our bottleneck, or for us to get demotivated, or you know, entrepreneur fatigue as one calls it.
Hmm.
But it's a game of patience. It has to go away one day. It went.
Okay. What is the meaning of entrepreneurship for you? How would you define the term entrepreneur?
So to me, an entrepreneur is a bit disruptive. They don't, or this is the way I think I just perceive entrepreneurs to be like, where very rarely will you find a successful entrepreneur who took an idea which was which made a lot of sense when he first picked it up and then executed it. Most times, entrepreneurs' ideas that they select get a lot of negative, critiquing in the beginning. But you have to believe in yourself. So pick an idea which you think you believe in, and that's all that matters. Numbers don't matter. Market research does not matter. Feedback from people does not matter. If you believe in a product, stick to it. Second thing, I think an entrepreneur has to be very aware of that most of the learning they will have to do, irrespective of the background they come from, has to be done by themselves. Very few, you will rarely find someone giving you the answers. So you
Hmm.
just need to keep digging and shamelessly asking questions to people. It could be a customer you're asking a question, it could be a friend, it could be a mentor. Just be very shameless and ask a lot of questions and ask for a lot of help. Third thing I think entrepreneur does is just never give up. You just don't stop. You just never give up. Everybody else will, but you cannot, and you should not.
Okay. As an entrepreneur, a big part of your job is to hire the right people for your venture. And hiring is a big challenge for all the startups. So can you tell us how you have gone about hiring the right people? Can you tell us how do you find the right people for your venture?
So, unfortunately, a startup does not get to hire the right people. When we started in 2012, uh, the kind of bakers I was looking for, they just did not exist.
Hmm.
Then, as you grow, there are times when you want to hire a really good sales manager, but you can't afford his salary. So, in the first few years of a startup, this is a very common problem most people face, that I can't afford to hire someone I want, or I can't find the person whom I want.
Mhm.
And to us, the answer was that for the longest time, we said we only want people who are willing to learn. And if they are willing to learn, we will teach them, the job will teach them, reality will teach them, and they will grow with us. So we changed the job description for most of the people we were looking for, from qualifications to one simple thing: are you willing to learn and work hard? If you are, come join us.
Mhm.
Whether they were joining us in the manufacturing, whether they were joining us in the sales team, didn't matter. And I think that's a trick a lot of young startups need to do. Don't try to find who's your perfect fit. Take whosoever you're getting, except obviously they have to be willing to learn. That has to be a qualifying criteria. And then you invest a lot of time training them. So today I'm able to manage a lot of things. But 3 years ago, when we first started the factory, I used to go to the factory every day for 12 hours because I was training the staff over there directly. But a year and a half of very thorough training is what is paying off today. So it sounds easy that I do a lot today, but 3 years ago I wasn't doing as much. I'd just taken one project and I said I will only concentrate on this project. Sow my seeds in the employees that I have. Ensure that they are motivated. They have a lot of good skills to learn. They are taken well care of, so that they are with me no matter what.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that's the way any startup should do.
Okay. My final question to you, tell us about the different lessons, especially the interesting lessons that you have learned as an entrepreneur, which we can take away and apply to our ventures.
You need to be very, very open minded and flexible in your approach. So, honestly, when we first started, like I said earlier, I just fell in love with bread, and it was more of a passion project. And a business was working around it, but I was just in love with my bread. And there were times when I would get feedback about my product, or there were times when people would ask me to make a product which I didn't want to.
Mhm.
And I was very rigid in my approach. And I think as time passed by, I realized that rigidity was becoming my biggest bottleneck. So one needs to be very open minded to what is it that you're doing and why is it that you're doing, and how will you adapt it.
Okay.
So I think first big learning is don't be too rigid. It's great to have a good value system. So I said, okay, I'm going to always make a genuinely honest bread. I will always ensure it's sourdough. If I'm talking, if it's whole wheat, it will be whole wheat. If it's not whole wheat, I will blatantly say it's not whole wheat.
Mhm.
So I didn't change my value system, but if I had to make a different kind of a bread or a cake, I was willing to learn to listen to my customers and adapt accordingly. So I think an entrepreneur definitely needs to be very, very open minded. Second is don't worry about failing. When you come up with an idea, whether it's a product idea or an execution idea or a project, uh, try and be prepared that there's a good chance that you may fail, but there's nothing wrong in failing. Instead, you will probably fail more than succeed, but that's just how it goes. So don't keep waiting for the ideal time. I always say perfect is the enemy of the good. Good is good enough. Go ahead with it. So
Hmm.
don't come up with an idea, try it, monitor it when you're executing it, monitor it. Did it work well? Did it not? If it did not work, stop it. Now come up with idea number two. And third is it's a lifelong commitment you've made. To me, entrepreneurship or the business that you've selected is a lifelong commitment you've made. Giving up is really not an option. So you just figure out if this doesn't work, how do I change the narrative in a way that it works for me? I think these are the three big learnings to me.
Okay. I think, unfortunately, we have come to the end of the session. Thanks for your time, Aditi, and it was a great learning experience. I'll say my best wishes for the baker's dozen.
Thank you, Priya. Take care. Have a good day.